All right. Do you think it possible to live a life without secrets? There are some things I've done in my life that I hope no one ever finds out. Am I all alone in this universe? Just hang on. If we live our lives in the light, is there any darkness? Can there be hidden places in the light? If we could somehow come to a place in our lives where pride, arrogance, and insolence does not rule over us, would we truly be upright in our hearts and minds? Would we truly then be living in the light? Walk in his light? We can do at all times, or is it something we do some of the time? Our words and the things we meditate on to be pleasing in God's sight at all times, or is this yet another pipe dream that can only be achieved in short bursts throughout our walk with God? Does God ever take pleasure in our words? Pleasure in our thoughts? Does God ever take pleasure in us? Would others ever notice if he did? The message is, this little light of mine. Please stand and cover yourselves for the reading of our scriptures. For those of you who may not know, I am tethered to wires and other various equipment, so I can't get up. This isn't a command of God to stand and cover. It is something that Yeshua did, and all of his Talmudim, his disciples, they all did that. So we do it too. First verse comes from Tehillim, that's Psalm, chapter 19, verse 12. It says, Shegiot mi Yavin, mi nistarot na kini. Verse 13, and it's the following verse. Gam mizadim hasoch avdecha al im seluvi az etam veniketi mi pesha rav. This, of course, the next verse, verse 14. Yiyu le razon im re fi ve hegyon libi lefanecha Yade Zuri the Goali. All right, you may be seated. Okay, so we're going to begin with Tehillim, which is Psalm, chapter 19, verse 12. It was our first one, if you recall. Our first word was Shegiot. It means error, and it's in plural, so it's errors, E-R-R-O-R-S, in case you can't understand this Hickish accent I picked up down south. Anyway, this word, an error, is Torah rebellion. It's what they otherwise call sin. It's a sin committed through inadvertence and error. So these are the sins we commit not on purpose, the ones we commit out of the lack of knowledge of the law, the ones that we commit just inadvertently, don't realize we're doing these things. And we all do this. We've all done this. This is part of the walk with God. First one is talking about this committing sin through inadvertence and error, through lack of knowledge, that kind of thing. Then it says me, which means who, and then it's Yavin, which is it is to distinguish, to separate, to stand apart, to be separate and distinct. Metaphorically, to be easily distinguished, distinct, and manifest, hence to consider. To understand, which depends upon the power of discerning, to discern, to perceive with the eyes, with the ears, which is to hear, with the touch, which is to feel. Just your average understanding. This is in-depth understanding. Elsewhere, it signifies some counsel and purpose, to turn the mind to anything, to attend to it, to understand, to regard as a thing understood, to know, to be acquainted with, to have understanding. So it comes from the pondering and thinking and meditating on something for a long period of time, working it out in your mind. It's that idea. Then it says ministarot, which is in the fall, and it's to be hidden, to lie hid from anyone, to be ignorant or to be without knowledge of. So this is the inadvertent sin. It's from the root satar, which is secret, from sight, to hide. I think you get the idea, right? The word that follows that is nakini, cleanse me. To be cleansed is to be purified. It is to be sprinkled with water. To take a shower, to take a bath, that's the sprinkling with water. To purge, you purge yourself of the uncleanliness by stop doing the unclean thing. Therefore, you purge yourself from it. A libation, because sometimes we commit these sins, and with those sins, comes the only way that God will allow you to be right in right standing with Him is to make an offering. And yes, that still is in effect, because you know how I know changes. All right, so some of that you make amends for. Let's say you stole something from somebody. You have to pay it back. And according to God's law, you have to add 5% on top of that when you've stolen something. Paid your tithe, you've stolen money from God. So when you realize, you've done it inadvertently, you forgot to write a check, you didn't realize it was the end of the month. This is the kind of thing he's talking about. This is the inadvertent. You did not mean to do it. Well, the law for theft is you pay back what you've stolen plus 5%. Just saying. Anyway, so the Amplified translation of Tehillim, or Psalm 19:12, is, who can distinguish, separate, discern, and perceive inadvertent error and Torah rebellion? From secrets, purge, purify, absolve, and pardon me. From secrets. Did you catch this? Remember satar, the secret, the thing that's hidden? Purge me from the secrets. Themselves from Torah rebellion, those who are cleansed from secrets. This is interesting, is it not? Let's look at something from the New Testament, from the Separim Shilachim, the New Testament. It's in the letter of Aharon, that's who they call Luke. Chapter 11, verse 33. In the Greek, it says albes, starts off with that. That's no one, nothing, nothingness, emptiness, vacuity, something's missing. Then it says in the Greek, luchnon, and yes, they have a sound in Greek. Luchnon, that's a lamp. Nar, or ner. My R really thing is not working very well. It's a lamp, always used figuratively of progeny. An example is, you can find it in 1 Melachim, or 1 Kings 11:36. David, my servant, may always have a lamp. In other words, that the family of David will always be here. That's what they're talking about. And that's figuratively. Literally, it's a lamp. And you got to think Bible here. So it's one of the little oil lamps that you see on Israeli sites and stuff. It's the little, almost looks like what we think of as a genie lamp, only much smaller. Has the little opening where you put the oil in, and it has the little bitty opening where the wick goes. Most people put the wick in the big opening, though. I don't know what the other end is for, to tell you the truth. I wanted to show you one. I have one, but I couldn't find it. So anyway, look up an oil lamp, an ancient Jewish oil lamp on Google. You'll probably be able to find what I'm looking for, or what I'm talking about. Whew, I'm getting confused. All right, then the next thing it says lights. So no one lights a lamp, right? And the word is os in Greek. It's or in Hebrew. It's a light. light everywhere diffused, such as that of the day. Did you realize that there is no such thing as darkness? There is only the absence of light. I'm just saying. So this is light because it diffuses darkness, right? Wherever it is, darkness doesn't no longer exists, which is why they say that there's no such thing. Anyway, they talk about it in terms of the light of the day. It's the thing that gives light, so it's a luminary, so it's used in morning light, daylight, the sun itself is thought of as light because it does in fact light up the sky. Light furnishes an image of good fortune. Circles, they use it of prosperity, sometimes with the proper sense of light retained, sometimes that of prosperity itself, light for doctrine and teaching. So if you have good doctrine and good teaching, you have light. That's going to become very important before this is over with. Brightness and countenance, cheerfulness of a countenance. So if you're happy and you're all excited and all that, your face is light, as opposed to being sad and your face being dark. The next word is ace in Greek. It just means two. You would use a lamed in Hebrew. Don't mean much to most people. It's just two. Then it's in Greek, which is the word for secret. And it would be the Hebrew word satar, which is to be hidden, to hide something. It's of a secret. Yeah, it's the same thing. Then they use, which they use for the word put. In Hebrew, it would be sum, to put, to set, to place, to set, to constitute. This is the same meaning is used for yirah, which is the base word, the root word of its foundation, referring to persons and things which stand upright. They stand in that place, or are rather regarded as standing prostrate. To place a plant, to plant something, because it's established somewhere, where it is planted. It's to beget children, because you established a family, right? To dispose an army, because you place them somewhere. You know, you've sent them out, and they're going to this place, and so that's used of that. There's a usage here in the Bible when you read it in Hebrew, you see sun shemo, and that is said of God to place his name anywhere. So, temple, it was said that God placed his name there, his authority was there. Why? Because that's where the Torah was. And so when the temple was destroyed and the Torah began to be synagogues all over the place, well, then God's name was in the synagogue. I'm saying. Okay. I could say, but I don't know that we need it right now. It may show up in the translation, but that's okay. The English Bibles, almost all of them say you don't light a lamp under a bushel. The Greek text doesn't say that. Not even a little bit. It's not there. It says you don't light a lamp and set it in secret. Then it goes on all epetain, but on the luch neon, on the menorah. You know what a menorah is? The lampstand. A menorah, often translated as a candelabrum, a candlestick, a menorah, right? It's the place where we think of more along the lines of that's where you put a candle. Well, this is pre-candle days. This is oil lamp days. It was always used of the great menorah, which stood in the tabernacle of witness. It also is used of the menorah that was found in the temple. Two very large, 70-foot tall ones in the temple area as well. It's from the root Does it sound like ner? It should. It's to give light, to shine, to give light, to be glad, to rejoice from the light or brightness of a happy face. Right? Then it says in Greek, ina oi. Then it says, estore al meno, which means which come. And so they're going to say bo in Hebrew. It's to come in, to enter. Anyone enters is the place where they go. It's confusing for people who speak English only. Many of the languages out there today use the same word for come and go. In English, we don't do that. We either come or we go. But in some language, in Africa, they still do this. In Hebrew, they certainly do this. It's the same word because no matter where you come and wherever you go, you come there. So it's the same thing, right? But we have to divide it up. So it's of a place which anyone enters, as of a house, a country, a ship, because that's where you come to there so that you can come to it. You get that. To enter into judgment with anyone because you come to a decision, and to come to a decision, you had to go there. To go out, to come in, describing the general course of life and action. It's coming and going, right? Different from this is to go out and come in before the people. In other words, to lead the people to war, leader and a commander. Because if you go to war, you came to that place, right? I've probably said enough about it. I'm worried that I'm making it more confusing than it ought to be. Then in Greek it says to. This is one of those words that means whatever they want it to mean. To, the, it, is, was, dog, cat, they don't care. Really understood this because they just use it any way they want to make a sentence say whatever they want it to say. This is as good as mine. Then it says phos. You hear phos. What's that sound like? Phos, like phosphorus, sure. Like photo, like, are you hearing it? It's light, and it's from that word or, the light. You remember that? We use that even of the sun because it gives light. Then it says bleposine. You ever heard blepo? How do you say that? Blepharoplasty? Blepho. There would be no R in it. It's blepho. My wife disagrees. She thinks there's an R. Well, maybe Latin puts an R in there. I don't know. But this is the same word, blepho or blepo, because the F and the O are the same thing in these languages. So it's to see. So we have the Hebrew word ra'ah. It's to see the face of a king. It is said of his ministers who are received in his presence. Why? Well, because in the day, when you came in to see the king, he had a scepter. And depending on which direction he turned that scepter, you either came in and ministered to him in his presence, or you were taken out and killed. So if you were ministering in his presence, that was a good thing. You lived another day. To be seen, the face of a king, said of his ministers, who are received in his presence. To see the face of God, in other words, to be admitted to behold God. That doesn't mean you actually see him. Let me see if I can think of a way to describe this. I had a conversation with a guy a while back about how he didn't understand why we didn't see God these days like they used to see him in the Bible. And I said, things changed. God doesn't change. Oh, no, they saw him walk on water and raise the dead, heal the sick, and they saw him as a stone providing water and food falling from the sky and all of that kind of stuff. And I said, today, oh, we don't see those things. That's only if you're blind. We take everything literally, especially when it comes to the Bible. So when when the Bible talks about us them around and gave them water, we think a stone followed them around and gave them water. When it talks about fire, at night, big pillar of fire at night, the big cloud by the day, literally, and we don't get it didn't happen, but we don't get what they're telling us. They're not telling us that these things were literal. They're telling us that God provided for their every need. They needed warmth, He gave them warmth. They needed sun, He gave them shelter from the sun. They needed food, He gave them food. They needed water. All they were trying to tell us is that God provided for our every need. It in a different way in our lifetime than He did back in the 40 years of the wilderness doesn't mean that God's showing up any different. That God's providing the food, that it's still falling from the sky, and that our water is still following us around like a stone in the desert. Just anyway, that's what they're talking about here. And again, they say to see is used to enjoy the light to live. Explain that. It's to be taught in visions, divinely brought, is said of the prophets. Okay, this is where Christianity jumps into, where the Christian Western world jumps into some place that it doesn't belong. No. God did not give these men these specific, some divinely inspired prophetic thing. These men read the Torah. And the way we work this stuff out in our mind is that our mind gives us dreams. God gave us dreams. Why? Because we had a dream? No, because God created us so that we would have dreams. These dreams, it was their way of working out something that they read in the Torah and how it developed. That's the wrong word. And how it, dang, I hate it when I go blank like that. How it to their life and their time. That's what the dreams and the visions are. They're not special. They're not hearing from God when nobody else is. It's their mind, things clear to them. That's what the dreams are. And we say they come from God because God created us so that it would work that way. I don't mean to sound like someone who's taken away all the mysticism and the magic of the Bible, but we got to get real here. God created us this way. That's why these things happen. Every dream from God? No. The dream shows your understanding. It shows you the future. It shows you your understanding. And so if you understand the Torah correctly, you'll see the famine coming. You'll see what's going on around you, as in like cycle. And if you know your Torah well enough, you'll look at it and you'll say doom and gloom, despair and agony on us all because the day of the Lord is upon us. We should be able to see that by knowing the Torah. I've already expressed that to you guys. It wasn't a dream God gave me. It wasn't a prophecy. God didn't come to me and say, "Thus saith He." I hope you understand what I'm saying. God created a human to be what He did for us. All right, so here's my amplified translation. Remember, we're in Aharon, or what they call Luke 11:33, and sets it in secret. But on a menorah, that those who enter in may let their eyes linger and behold the light. The sentence makes sense now, doesn't it? Because how stupid is it that he would say they don't put it under a bushel? No one's that stupid, right? Translation. This is my translation of the Greek text. It's a ner, a lamp, secret, but on a menorah, so that those who come in may see. Kind of puts a new spin on this little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine, because it would be more like this little light of mine will dispel the secrets. Let's move back to Tehillim 19:13, our next verse, which means also in addition to, behold, yea, indeed, truly. It actually is used in all those ways. Mizadim, pride, but sound on the end makes it plural. It's if you have pride, it's always going to be in plural. It will never be in singular. Properly swelling up, inflated, connected idea of insolence and disobedience to the Torah. Word zud, to boil over, speaking of water. Or to the violence or fierceness of a passionate mind, to insolence and wickedness. Did you realize that rage comes from pride? Hasoch, well, I shouldn't say that all the time, but a lot of the time. Hasoch is our next word. It is to restrain, hold in, to preserve, to keep safely from something, from anyone. In other words, to deny it to him, to spare, to be sparing of things. Avdeha, avad, eved, your servant. Servant you, but we say it backwards, your servant. A servant, a slave. To a whole people when subject and tributary to another. Slaves here in America because we have to pay tribute. Just saying. By Bible standards, the servant of a king, in other words, his ministers and his courtiers, in various senses. A worshiper of God is considered a slave, a servant. The minister or ambassador of God, called and sent by God, service of God, a slave, a servant. And isn't that what Shaul, the guy they call Paul, isn't that what he said about himself all the time? He sure did. Because the Hebrews in lowly adulation call themselves servants, and those to whom they speak, lords. We saw that in quite a while into hundreds is when they developed the English language. And one of the other things that developed, particularly in Europe, was saying, my Lord. Lord, you were correct, my Lord. You know, they always said that. And the person may not have actually been their Lord. He began to say, sir. That is correct, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. It's the same thing. Okay, then it says al, which is the Hebrew word for not, one of the Hebrew words for not. Then it says yim selu, to rule, to have dominion, to have power of doing anything, to be over anything. I may have spelled that one wrong. To lord over, to rule over. It's used of a prince, and in a bad sense, of course, it's of a tyrant. And here's a note. The word is derived from the idea of judging, forming an opinion, to think, to suppose, to think fit, allied to the notion of giving sentence, ordering, and ruling. So truly, your Lord is someone judgment over you, who can punish you and who can reward you, right? This V, usually we say B, but in here it'll come out the harder V sound, V. Just means in me. As, which is there, it's of a place. At that time, in or there. of pastime, and those sorts of things. So if this happens, there's your word, Oz, that will happen. Then our next word is etam, which is complete, to finish. Eight, to be complete, to be completed, to be whole, in shutting up, in closing, to be finished, especially used of time, to be consumed, spent. I'm done, I'm finished. All right, so then we have veniketi in Hebrew, which is an innocent me, literally me, my innocence. It's in nifal, which of course is nikah. It's to be pure, metaphorically innocent, followed by mean, the word mean, made of any fault, to be free from punishment, to be quit, to be done, from an oath or from an obligation. You've completed your obligation, so now you're free from it. You're clear from it. You've paid off your loan, so now you're free from it. It makes some sense. To be vacant, empty, spoken of a city. It's to be laid waste is usually more the idea they use. Ka, which is to be pure, to sprinkle water, or to wash something. To offer a libation, because you purify yourself and then you make an offering. Mipesha. It's pasha is your root word. Defection, rebellion, and fault, especially Torah rebellion, transgression against God. In other words, the Torah rebellion is transgression against God. It's a transgression against the Torah. It's used of penalty of transgression, used of a sacrifice for Torah rebellion. And this is they're saying for the word nish. Me, putting an SH in there that doesn't belong. Me, pesha is your word. 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Those who transgress the Torah, or who commit transgression, are also in transgression of the Torah. Sin, because it's the same thing. Those who commit sin are also in transgression of the Torah, because sin is rebellion. That's in the New Testament. 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. I really think if people verse down, they would look at the New Testament very differently. I think it's the last word. Let me see. The last word in this verse is Rav. Rabbi. We get the word from that. It is great because every rabbi is fat. No, I'm just kidding. It's because they're great of knowledge. In other words, they have a doctorate degree. That's literally what they mean when they're talking about a rabbi. Is multis, word we don't use anymore, whether of one continuous thing or of collectives which can. So it can be one thing that is humongous, something that's humongous because there's things connected together, right? Things all becoming one thing. Many, numerous, much, great, large, vast, powerful. And it's also to be old because you're great in years. A leader, great man, whether he's a good man or not. If he's a powerful leader, they would call him a great leader. One who is skilled in any art or skillful. In this case, one who has a servant. We're talking about someone who has mastered something. So here we get the idea of the rabbi. He has mastered the Torah. He has mastered education. That's what they're talking about. All right, so here's my amplified translation. Also, restrain, hold in, deny and withhold your servant from swelling up with pride, boiling over with arrogance and insolence. Do not let it rule over me. If he does that, in that place I will be complete, finished, and upright in heart, in mind, of course, which is the same thing, innocent and without fault from rebellion and Torah rebellion or sin, from so many, too vast to number. Is not asking God to stop these behaviors in his life. We really need to understand this. It is not, oh God, don't let me do this, don't let me do that. No, he's not asking God to stop the behaviors in his life. He is asking God to point them out before you know him. You better be ready for it, because if you ask God to point it out, you're going to get depressed real fast. Swelling up with pride, boiling over with arrogance and insolence comes from secrets. The ones I'm about to tell you are just the symptoms, not the ailment. You are walking in the light when you know you're not. God is controlling your mouth and or your body when you know he is not. A sense of entitlement, a sense of superiority, which is, of course, pride. The opposite of all that, low self-esteem. And it comes from the lack of love of oneself or lack of love for others. Are secrets that we often allow other people to believe the opposite of. Yohanan in 1 John chapter 1 verse 7, going back to the 7, it starts off and it says "and and to," which is if but in the. Then the next word is photi. Remember, like the big ball in the sky is a light, the light of the face and the countenance to be happy. Then it says patomen, which is we walk. So this is going to connect to the Hebrew word halach, to go, to walk, to go along boundaries, to go through or over a place, or thing, to have conversation with, to go after anyone, to follow after, to worship. After God, you worship him. To walk, in other words, to live, to follow any manner of life. So if you're worshiping God, that means you're imitating God. And it's difficult to imitate God if you don't understand that God's lifestyle is. That's why he gave it to us. And that's why it's called the grace of God. It's by which he lives, called the Torah. And if we'll live like that, then we imitate the mannerisms of God. Life. Footsteps, as it says, to imitate him in life and manners. Way, to vanish. Hence, to decease, to die. So, as water, in other words, to flow, to be poured out. To go on, to go forward in anything. In other words, to go on, adding on to something. Now, the note here is that these are the boundaries of our lives. That is our walk. Boundaries. Some are just different than others. One person forbids that person to go, forbids that person to kill, forbids that person to do all kinds of things, right? Those are the boundaries lives. Other people, not so much. The same. They all have boundaries. It's just some boundaries are way wider than others. It says, os altos esteem. Then we look at which is in the or, your light word again. So then it says, using the word fellowship here, it's kind of sounds like koine, doesn't it? Used here would be tesuma, that which is deposited. So let's look at the Hebrew word because it'll help us understand what he's talking about here a lot better. From Leviticus 6:2, soul, or if a person, that's what they mean by soul. If a person, Torah rebellion, if he commits sin and commit a trespass against Yahweh. So in other words, a trespass against Yahweh is a Torah rebellion. It is a sin. Lie to his neighbor in that which has, or which was delivered him to keep. So in other words, and he left his lawnmower with you, and then you blew it up, and you pretend that you don't know anything about it, or you sold it to somebody because you needed some money, and you pretend you lie about ever having it, right? Those are sins. They're transgressions, not only against the Torah, but against Yahweh. So, but if he does that, that's what they mean by delivered. It's going to make some sense, I promise. Then it says echomen, which is have. This is met, which means with. And then it says elelon. It almost sounds like Alan, doesn't it? Elelon. Anyway, one another. The word that was given here by, I can't think of the guy's name. One of the guys that wrote a Hebrew New Testament, he used the word chabar, to bind together, hence to join together. Not biblical. The biblical would have said ish le ish, or bat le bat, or ach le ach, man to man, sister to sister, brother to brother. That's what those Hebrew words meant. That's really what it would have said in the biblical period. It would not have used the word chavar. It means kind of the same thing. The problem is, if you're saying man to man, it gets mixed up with something that you might think of happening in San Francisco. Let's just leave it at that. So they use this other word so that you would get the idea of the binding together and the joining together one another. Right? So that's why they did it. It says kaito ema, which is and the blood. The word ema is blood. So we would say dam in Hebrew, blood from its red color. I was thinking about this the other day. Even in the Josephus lexicon, they tried to tie this word to white. They tried to make this word of the white race. So in a very inadvertent way, they exclude every other race. Dam is blood. It is from the red color. So when they start talking Rudy, when they say the word Rudy, when you see that red and Rudy, that was a very underhanded to make white race superior. Mark that kind of nonsense out. It gets not the color of someone's skin. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Blood is used especially for bloodshed and slaughter, of course. Contracted by killing because blood is spilled. Blood of the grape is used of wine. It is in plural, so it's especially as to shed, it's in slaying, is slaughtering. And they use that because when you, so that you can have a barbecue, there's going to be blood, right? That's why it's used to that. Then it uses the word in Greek, yesau. You actually pronounce that yesau. These days they say yesu. It has kind of morphed. How that word would be pronounced in modern Jews say that because they don't want to say Yeshua. But this is Yeshua. I'm going to spare you all the explanation on Yeshua. You can look on the Allen site, and it actually shows you how Yeshua became Jesus. But anyway, Huiao, which is the son. And it's a son, sometimes used of children of both sexes, because it's really from the word children. about male children, then it becomes son. So it's used to both, not just once in a while. It is the name of age for a boy of a youth. So if they're calling him a son, it means he's young. Used to foster sons and stuff like that. It's used a lot, but not always. Tau. They think of his. It more often means it and not his about Bible stuff. So then this is kata rize, which is cleanses. It is from the root, which is to cover over. Cover over, to overspread with anything. Covered with hair. Your head is covered with hair. All, but it's probably just covered with a hat. To be shaggy. Rebellion, in other words, to pardon, to expiate a crime. Our rebellion has never been washed away, covered over by the blood. Being washed in the blood was a process of covering over the body with the blood of a sacrifice. Rebellion does not go away. It is not as though we have never sinned. Our Torah rebellion is always with us. Think about it. They call David, King David. He was a murderer, was he not? Oh, no, he was forgiven. No. He will never be able to take back the man who murdered. He will take back the sins he committed. They will always be made because that's something he did. And it's the same for all of us. Why would a man like that wind up in heaven? It's covered by the blood sacrifice made on his behalf. So it's not as though we've never sinned. We sinned. Then it says in Greek, passes, which is us from all, and then we're going to use the word amalkias, all sin. It's from the word pesha. It's defection, rebellion, a fault, a trespass, especially to our rebellion. Yeah, we've already had this. Simplified translation. Remember, we're on 1 Yochanan 1:7. But if we walk within the set boundaries, have conversation with, follow after, worship, imitate, and live out the totality of our lives in the light as he exists, we put, place, and set our foundation, twisted and bound together. That was that bot or that that's the twisted and bound together. And the blood of Yeshua, who descended from it or from him. You could say it either way. I think it would be more accurate here, but we can say descended from him, covers. From, he lives in the light. If he is the light, where did he descend from? It, the light, who descended from him, covers over us, pardoning and expiating our faults, trespasses, transgressions, Torah rebellion, covenant. Remember, the Torah rebellion breaks the covenant. So here's the regular translation. But if, and that's a big old if the light, what is the light? The Torah. As he is in Torah, the light, if with each other. And the blood of Yeshua, his son, light, cleanses us from all Torah. The best that the psalmist could hope for, if you remember what the psalmist said that got all this started, was for God to help him not commit too many Torah rebellions, too many acts of Torah rebellion, too many sins. But here we see not only that we can, with few Torah rebellious acts, with few sins, but we also see how we accomplish that. We also now see that God answered the prayer of the psalmist. Because remember, he said, show me how this is, live my life without a lot of sin, God. Show me how. And here's a man that The light of, what is light? The light is knowledge. It's in the mysteries of the Bible, the secrets and the mysteries of the Torah, the secrets and the mystery of Mashiach. What has happened? The light has shone in your life. You live in the light of the knowledge. I hope that makes some sense. But if we walk in the light, in the light, as he is the light, with each other. Because we all have to do it if we're going to have fellowship with each other. And the blood of Yeshua from all of that rebellion. That's how we do it. That's how God answered the prayer. Our last verse was Tehillim, or Psalm 19:14. It started out with you, which is to be, to exist, all those kind of things. Then it says le razon, acceptable. It's of delight, satisfaction. To be acceptable, used of being acceptable to God. To be approved, that with which anyone is delighted, especially what is pleasing to God. So they use this a lot of being pleasing to God. It's will, it's pleasure, that which pleases anyone. Used of wicked pleasure and wantonness, that's the opposite of it. Goodwill, of favor as of a king, especially of God, because he is a king, the ultimate king. To receive favor and benefits. Then it's imre, which is words, me or my words, of course, used especially of the words of God. A pleasant, persuasive words, a command, a mandate, to bring to light, to shed light on the subject. Oh, it's all about light. P or P, that's your mouth. The words of my mouth. This is behegyon. What is meditation? It's the sound of a harp when struck. What? Well, resonating in our mind. It's meditation, it's resonating. We're going over it and over it. Devices and plots, ways and bad ways. I've been devising and plotting a way to get the tent put up for several weeks. So see, that's a good thing. But if I were devising and plotting a way to bad to somebody, then that would be a bad thing. It's from the root is to murmur, to mutter, to growl. Use of a growl of a lion over its prey, thunder, of the muttering of enchanters, of the sound of a harp when struck, of the groaning and sighing of men. Poetically, absolutely, to utter a sound, to sing, to celebrate, to meditate, speak with oneself, murmuring in a low voice, as is often done by those who are musing. Remember anything, to meditate, to read the syllable, which can only be done in Hebrew. There are no other languages that you can do that with. Don't try that with the Bible, unless you're actually doing it to the Hebrew word. E, that's to heart me. The heart, which of course is the central point of the blood and the seat of life, it often means the soul of life, as of the seat of the senses, affections, and emotions of the mind of various kinds, as of love, and it's the part of you that lives on after the physical body turns to dust. Then it says, Lefaneh, off the A there, to faces you. Okay, so here we're talking to faces you. That's idiomatic. It means, because if you're in the presence of somebody, are you not face to face? That's what they mean by that. And then it says Yahweh. It's using the proper name of God. And then it says Zuri, strength me, my strength. Strength. And that's, of course, the word for stone and pebble, packed and solid and mass, so it's strong. A rock metaphorically used of God. God is my rock. In protection of Israel. Drawn from the quarry. It is applied to the founder of a nation, the sword. It's applied to the founder of a city because you go out to the rock quarry, you dig out a rock, you found the city, right? And you found a city with your sword, with your knives. Idea. All right, then it says Bego Ali, which is and redeemer. So you're my strength, and now you're my redeemer. The root, it's to redeem, to buy back as a field or farm sold. A thing, God, a slave. You buy back a slave, you redeemer. It's used of a field. You buy back the field, you've redeemed it. God is redeeming men because men had to buy us back from our sin, buy us back from our Torah rebellion. Of Israel. Actually, in the Bible, it is only used of Israel. Not the New Testament. Yeshua, the guy that called Jesus, said, I am not sent but to the Gentiles. Mormons? No. I am not sent but to the lost sheep. Torah and Israel. Sorry. It only speaks of Israel. One thing I would like to say about this, just as a side note, because I'm hearing some are not exactly right. Group of people that want America to become communist because they think that if they push for this, they'll be able to be at the top of the rung. They'll get to have the money and the power and the say-so over everybody else. Take away people's guns. They say they don't, but they do. Because they don't want the resistance, because of ammunition, they might resist somebody trying to take over a free country and make it communist. But that's exactly where we're headed with some of these. So because of that, you have TV and radio hosts all saying, oh, communism is bad, socialism is bad. First socialist group comes from the Bible. Now, theoretically, they say that socialism in the 1800s, Marxism and Lenin and Stalin. Those guys are the ones credited with it, but it's not true. You find in the New Testament. But, no, it's not even correct. That's the second place. The first place you find it is in the Dead Sea Scrolls because it predates the New Testament letters. Not by much, but it does. These are socialists, and actually it goes even before that. The part that they call the Old Testament, socialist state that God set up in Israel, where here's where it's different. In the Bible, when the land of Israel was given to the Yehudim, the Jews, to them, it already had houses on it. Of course, the land was already there. The fields were already there. And the government, the leaders of the people got together and they divvied up Israel and gave it out to the people. So here's what's different. In the socialism of today, the government owns everything and the people own nothing. Socialism of the Bible, the people own everything and the government owns nothing. In the Bible, the priests. Did the priests own anything? There was a place set aside for them to live, but they didn't own it. It wasn't theirs. It belonged to the people. So you see how socialism has been perverted? Utterly and completely perverted. And the perverted portion is the kind that we're going toward. What bothers me is that perverted something and they're taking it to the wrong, very far extreme, the opposite of what it's supposed to be. And now people are jumping up and down and saying socialism is bad. Socialism is not bad. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Socialism in America because it's perverted. It's the opposite of what it should be. Here's my amplified translation. We're looking at our last actual scripture here, Tehillim 19:14. Let the words, discourse, commands, and mandates that I bring to light with my mouth, and the muttering, growling, roaring, thunderous groaning, and the sighing of my heart be delightful, pleasing, and acceptable before your face, Yahweh, my refuge and redeemer. Pretty cool, huh? Now I want to compare that. We're getting pretty close. It's found in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 15. It starts off with tauta, which means this. Then it says meleta, which means meditate on this. It's from our word higayon. We've already had this. The sound of the struck, it's the thing that resonates in the mind. Muttering the thunderous. Then it says aim taptois. That means in the give. We would say natan, to give, to cause, to receive, given many things, but to receive them. There was once a man going to give me a boatload of money, a little pouch. Was $20,000 in it. I'm pretty sure there really was $20,000. I mean, he opened it, there was definitely cash in there. He said it was 20 grand. I think it probably was. He said he was going to give it to me, but he forgot to cause me to receive it. I'm just saying. Anywho, that is something. They're supposed to actually receive it. You're going to give something to somebody doesn't mean that you actually gave them something. You said you were going to give them 20 grand and you didn't, then you gave them a lie, is what you gave them. Just saying, just thinking out loud here, just trying to help everybody out. So it's to cause to receive, to give into the hand who are victors because given into their hands. To deliver into the power of anyone. So, if you overpowered somebody, they're delivered into your hands. I've said enough about that, I think. So, that you, the what? Procope, that your progress go on well. In other words, to promote quickly to public offices and honor, to accomplish anything, to be prospered, in other words, to be raised to great honor. The Bible had nothing to do with money. Absolutely nothing. Usually when they're talking about prosperity, they're talking about a family that has a lot of children. Talked about somebody of great position because his position kept gaining, kept going further and further up the ladder. So he had prospered in his profession. The way that they use it in the Bible, they've never used it of money. Then the next word is phanera in the Greek. It's evident, it's bahan in Hebrew. Examine, to try, to prove, especially metals. It's a melting pot, right? So you put the gold or the silver in it. You're trying it, you're proving it by fire. What are you doing? You're getting rid of the dross. So God examining the hearts of men, of God dross. Of men doubting God, that's the other way around, because that would be the dross. When it's a watchtower. For things when you're in the watchtower, at least you should be. It's aim passing in everything, in other words. My Amplified Translation. Mutter, growl, roar thunderously, groan and think on these things. Apply your heart to them. You will be examined, searched out, purified by fire, and proven to everyone. Translation. Meditate upon this, everything that comes before verse 15. Meditate upon this, that you're evident to all. So let's look at what leads up to this. We're going to go to 1 Kabbalah. This is my translation of the Greek text. That's 1 Timothy. Go through verses 7 through 16 rather. Verse 7. Use godless and foolish myths, and discipline yourself with the Tov Ma'asim. And it does say good deeds, even in the English. But that's Tov Ma'asim. That's good deeds from the Torah. For exercising the body is of little value. Ma'asim, the good deeds of the Torah, they have value in everything, having the promise of life now and life to come. You who don't realize that salvation is for here and now don't really understand what's going on in the Bible. Nobody needs salvation in heaven. You need salvation here, right? And so if we will meditate on and think about and spend our time on the Torah, then we'll get it here. Verse 10, for because of this, we both labor and struggle, for we hope in Yahweh, the living God is what it says in English, but it's Yahweh, who our hope is in that, who recompenses all men. He recompenses everybody. Everybody gets what they deserve. Let me put it that way. It says, but especially the Torah observant, especially the faithful. We're definitely going to get what's coming to us. Doing what he said will be a good thing. Verse 11, command and teach this. Let no one despise your youth. Understand this is not a 20-year-old man. You were not ordained until you were at least 30. Most of the people that are around him are probably going to be closer to 50. You're a punk kid. All right, so let no one despise your youth, but be an example to the Torah observant, to the faithful, in word, in conduct, in love, in Torah observance, in purity. Until I come, give yourself to reading. What did they read? The Torah. Because they didn't have a New Testament, by the way. So they had to read the Torah, or the Old Testament nowadays. So until I come, give yourself to reading, to doctrine, which can only be in the Torah, by the way. Verse 14, do not neglect the lot, I should say, that is within you, with the laying on of hands by the Zikne, which are the elders. Okay, I have to break this down and explain this. Grace, the gift of grace, that is your lot in life. Of grace. The gift of grace, your lot. So in this case, it's talking about Kabadel. The gift of grace that was in Kabadel was to be a shepherd over the flock. The rabbi, and a moreh, the teacher of the people in his synagogue. The lot came to Kabadel because of that excelled. It was decided by those over him. Prophecy, but prophecy was not something mysterious among these first century rabbim. Prophecy was Torah interpretation. Saith me. Not that at all. It's not. That's what the modern Western world has turned it into. In English, thus saith the Lord. What they're saying is, this is my interpretation of the Torah. A prophecy, they're not saying, thus says God, thou shalt be a teacher. Thus says God, thou shalt be a carpenter. No, that's not what happened. It happened to him because of what he excelled in according to what he had learned. So if you were trained evangelist, that's what your lot would become. If you were trained to be a rabbi, that's what your lot would. If you were trained to be a that's different. The head of the, he was not the rabbi that taught. He was the one that business of the synagogue. So he excelled in something different. The teacher of the Torah excelled in. This was someone more analytical, someone more at crunching the numbers and that kind of stuff. So if that's what that you're good at, that the prophecy, the decision by your leaders position. That's what's being said here. Meditate this, that your growth be evident to all. You see this with musicians. Guy learns to play the guitar, he wants to be a piano player. He wants to be a guitar player. Everybody wanting to be something that they're not. Or he's a singer and he's got but he wants to be a rock star. Garth Brooks made that mistake. Singer, was he not? Then he goes off and tries to pretend to be a rock star. They made fun of him relentlessly for 2 years over that, right? Playing, he got away from his lot. Was prophesied. So he's saying, be comfortable in your own skin. Think on that. This is what the elders saw in you. This is what they think that your best ability is going to be. Meditate on it. Think about it. Let it resonate in your mind. Then it says, pay attention to yourself and the Torah, the doctrine. Remain in it, the doctrine, the Torah. For by doing this, you will save yourself. He just told you what salvation is. Yourself and, which is Torah, that's the doctrine. Remain in it, the doctrine, the Torah. This, for by paying attention to the way you live and what you do, and remaining in what you do is according to the Torah. By doing this, you will save yourself. He didn't say an 8-second prayer, believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, right? He's telling you what salvation actually is right here. You will save yourself and those who hear you. So the other big wow moment here is, he just said, save Kabadel. You cannot help others until you are on solid ground. We do not exactly reveal all our secrets. That's not the point. That's not where we're going with this. It's that we no longer live in secret. That's not the same thing. If we truly live our lives in His light, there is no darkness in us. In us, we do not live in His light. Do not forget that the ability is not instantaneous. Of our stumbles and the light of our successes will overlap at first. His light will eventually dry up our pride, arrogance, and insolence. But again, this is a process. It will not happen overnight unless a handy-dandy darkness be gone pill, which I have personally anointed just for you. Low price of $10,000 plus shipping and handling. But wait, there's more. There's always, so much more. I'll send you a second Darkness Be Gone pill for free. Absolutely free. So that you can use it on your spouse, close friend, or even an enemy. Shipping and handling fee of $15,000. Wait, what? God finds extreme pleasure in our words and meditations when they consume. God finds extreme pleasure in our thoughts of Him, but that does not mean He does not find pleasure in anything else we say or meditate on. I find extreme pleasure in some of the simplest things my spouse, children, grandchildren, and friends say. God most certainly does the same with us. Will others ever notice when we come to a place of true godliness in our lives? point where we live this way every day, not just on the weekends or some spiritual holiday? Yes. This is displayed in our lives when we reach the point in our lives where we are so well healed that we can finally help others to heal. Not kid ourselves about it. I've seen people do this. They think just because they have a license hanging on the wall in a practice where they're telling people you not be drinking, that they're actually helping people, and they're not. They're kidding themselves. As a pastor in a church and as the rabbi in a synagogue, kidding myself, thinking that what I was doing was actually changing lives. So you take Shaul's advice to Kabadel that changes. All right? It comes from real salvation. Godliness is the light of God in us that shines for all to see our faithfulness, our charity. The light of God, living in the light of God, is truly understanding the mysteries of God. The big mystery that they had in the biblical period was Yah. How would he come? Would he be one person, two, or three? Would it be God in the flesh? Would it be some fleshly man that God sent somehow? Who's there? And then the Selichim, the what's that word? Apostles. couldn't think of the word. Came and explained it, right? In the light of Mashiach. It's Torah observance. That's the light of Mashiach. Anyway, shadow in the light of God. And when we live our lives in that light, to hide our words or our deeds, because our words and our deeds are according to the Torah. The light of God is the place we live. It's not a place we go to, it's a place we live in. It took some of us longer to get here than others. It has no bearing on. The light of God is a place where we live godly lives because they're according to the Torah. Are you living in the light of God? Is your light a fledgling flicker? Or is it a gigantic menorah at the top of a hill? All who see it. Walk toward the light. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Let your light shine brightly in this dark world. Let your light shine bright enough to lead the lost to Mashiach, his light, and you will not live your life in darkness. Shalom.